so much. We're going to take you to Coquitlam, British Columbia. Let's listen to the Conservative leader.
Keeping our distance was hard, but we followed the rules. It has been difficult, but we have persevered. Canada has persevered. But like most Canadians, I've been watching the news for months with the fear that we'll have to do it all over again as we saw the Delta wave slowly growing. I and others said very clearly that calling an election in the middle of the pandemic was not the right thing to do. Mr. Trudeau did not listen. Mr. Trudeau put himself first. Les autres chefs et moi, on a clairement dit qu'une élection en pleine pandémie n'était pas la bonne chose.
It was not a good thing. Mr. Trudeau has not listened, but Mr. Trudeau thought of himself first.
Like most Canadians, I was alarmed by Dr. Tam's briefing yesterday. Not just because of the rising caseloads, not just because the government seems more interested in campaigning for a majority than managing our health crisis, but because we now find ourselves in the middle of a fourth wave with caseloads exploding. What's done is done, but we urgently need a path out of this crisis. Today, Canada's Conservatives have one. Right now, this is a time for all of us to come together. A time for us to focus not on what is convenient politically, but on what is right. There are four things that Canadians need right now. Four steps that we should unite around, rather than seeking to divide our country. Pour le moment, on dit on doit unir nos forces.
We must unify our forces. We must concentrate on what is good. We must put aside the divisions and what is politically advantageous. For now, Canadians need four things, four measures to unify the country instead of dividing it.
The first is information. Let's be clear. This was an extremely foreseeable risk. I have no doubt that the scientists and public health officials monitoring this crisis have the best intentions, that they wanted to let us know. But Canadians are right to ask why only now we are receiving updated figures and modeling, and why they stopped when an election was called. They're right to ask why families across the country weren't given the information to help them decide what risks to take, whether to go to the office or mall, or whether to stay home. The briefings should resume regularly, no matter how bleak, no matter how inconvenient for the government of the day. Les Canadiens ont le droit de demander pourquoi
right to ask why they're now getting some data, why they were not receiving the information when the election was launched. They have a right to ask why they didn't receive the information that would have permitted them to decide of the risks to go to work or to a commercial center. We must give information regularly, whether it's positive or negative, whether it's good or not for the government.
If we believe in science, then we must let it be heard. And I, for one, will always be listening. The second measure is fairness. It's in knowing that the sacrifices that Canadians are making aren't in vain, and that everyone is following the rules. We got through the worst of the pandemic by everyone doing their part. La deuxième mesure est l'équité. Les Canadiens doivent savoir qu'ils n'ont pas fait ces sacrifices
that they have not made those sacrifices for nothing, and everybody is following the rules. We've went through the worst of the pandemic because everybody did his part.
Nothing compromises the united approach we need more than people thinking the rules don't apply to them. Us politicians, we should be leading by example. Canada's Conservatives have used this as our guiding principle throughout this campaign. We've done more telephone town halls than ever before, and we've developed new, innovative approaches to develop our democracy while keeping Canadians safe. We've committed to a policy which protects Canadians through vaccines and rapid testing while respecting individual health choices. And crucially, we haven't broken the rules. then sought to explain it away. We will lead by example, and others should do the same. On a adopté une politique pour protéger les Canadiens.
Adopted a policy to protect Canadians. We've had some vaccinations and respect the choices of everyone. And mostly, we didn't break the rules to explain ourselves after. We're going to be giving the example. Others should do the same.
Third, we need to emerge from this crisis united, not divided. So let me be frank. The single worst thing I or any other leader could do is turn a question of public health into one of political division. Troisièmement, on doit sortir de cette crise. On doit sortir unis, non pas divisés.
Not divided.
Je vais être clair.
I will be clear.
La pire chose
The
que je
worst
peux
thing
faire
that
ou
I
les
could
autres
do,
leaders
or that
est de
other leaders could do,
transformer une
would be
question
to
de santé
transform a
publique
question
en
of public
division
health
politique.
in division
As we
of
look around
policies.
the world, the places that have fared the best are the ones which seek to understand why some people are nervous and try to persuade them to trust vaccines, our best route out of this crisis. We should ask ourselves whether Canada really wants to import divisive vaccine politics that we've seen elsewhere. Do we really want to approach questions of public health with politics rather than science? Do we want public officials to promote an us versus them approach at a time we should be uniting together against a fourth wave? I'm focused on bringing us together, not tearing us apart. Est-ce qu'on veut vraiment aborder les questions de santé publique avec la politique plutôt que la science?
Instead of science, as Prime Minister, I want to unify, not divide.
You don't win people over by threatening them. You win them over by reaching out, talking to them, understanding their fears, answering their questions. We need to persuade every Canadian that vaccines are safe, effective, and our best route out of this crisis. So for those of you out there who haven't yet, please get vaccinated. But if you're someone who is worried or having second thoughts, I hear you. We haven't done enough to assuage your fears. And sometimes you've been talked down to. But please trust us. Please listen to us. We are here to protect you and your families. Alors, je demande aux gens de se faire vacciner. Mais si vous êtes inquiet,
but if you are worried, and if you have doubts, I understand you. We didn't do enough to diminish your fears. Sometimes we didn't listen to you, but trust us. Listen. We are there to protect you and to protect your families.
We will give you the information you need, and we will work with you to help you protect yourself and to protect others. Finally, cooperation. The way we do all of this is to work together, to work with the provinces and premiers to find a solution that is meaningful and sustainable. Finalement, la coopération. On doit travailler
we must
ensemble.
work together
Avec les provinces
to work with the provinces to find a solution and that would be sustainable.
Rather than lecturing, sniping, and bickering. Canadians deserve better than that. We all need to row in the same direction. We need to work together to understand the steps that are needed to contain, control, and eradicate COVID. We need to work together to deliver more vaccines, track outbreaks, and manage crises. I won't squander that chance.
We must work together to get more vaccinations and follow the clusters and manage the crisis. I don't want to miss this chance.
Information, fairness, unity, cooperation. This shouldn't be the discussion we're having in the middle of an election, but it is, and we need to work together. I won't do what is convenient politically, but what is right. Information, equity,
unity, cooperation. We shouldn't be talking of that during an election, but that's what's happening. But we must work together now. I don't want to do what is practical on a political level. I want to be
And that
doing
means
what's
focusing on
good.
solutions, not seeking to divide our country. It means being straight with the country, rather than saying one thing and doing another. We need better, so I'll level with Canadians. There are no easy solutions, but we must all do our part if we are to get through this together. I will do my part, and I hope you'll join me in taking the right precautions, in getting vaccinated, in treating each other with kindness, understanding, and compassion, and in protecting our country. Je vais faire ma part,
I will
et
do my
j'espère
part,
que vous êtes
and I
avec moi
hope you're
pour
with me
prendre les
to
bonnes décisions,
make the good
vous faire
decisions,
vacciner,
to get
traiter les
vaccinated,
autres avec
to treat
gentillesse,
others with kindness,
compréhension et
comprehension,
compassion,
and
et
compassion,
protéger
and
notre pays.
protect our country.
I'll take questions in a moment, but first, I want to recognize that today marks 1,000 days that Michael Kovrig and Michael Spavor have been held by the Communist Party in China. The thoughts of all Canadians are with them and their families today. We need a government that will stand up for them, for all Canadians, and for Canada's values. D'abord, je veux reconnaître qu'aujourd'hui marque les 1000
marks
jours
the 1,000 days
Michael Kovrig
that Michael Kovrig and Michael Spavor have been detained by the Communist Party of China. Our thoughts and the ones of all Canadians with them and their families. We need a government that will defend them, that will defend all Canadians and the values of Canada. I thank you.
Questions. Allons maintenant prendre les questions. Première question.